All right, we are rolling here. Thank you to everyone for joining us. This is going to be a great webinar. I've been talking to Scott for the last 15 minutes. Scott Berman, Florida Window and Door, and also HeavySet Tech co-founder. So this webinar is called From Lead to Booked 24/7, the AI appointment playbook that cuts hidden labor costs and scales revenue. I'll give you forewarning. If you wanted to come to a place with a lot of information, you're going to get it today. I have more notes than I've ever had for one of our webinars here at CCN. I'm really excited to ask Scott some questions. Briefly, first, I know some of you are members of Certified Contractors Network, and others of you are not members. So I want to give a couple of slides here I have on Certified Contractors Network before I introduce Scott to the show. So what is Certified Contractors Network? We are the largest number one training, coaching, and networking membership organization exclusively for home improvement contractors. We have interior remodelers as well, but we primarily focus on the exteriors: windows, doors, roofers, siders, decks. And the nice thing about our organization is we offer training in 6 pillars you see listed on the side here: sales, sales management, production, marketing, business, financial framework, managing by the numbers and KPIs. We can train anybody in your company, any department in your business, not just a sales training organization, though that's how we got started. We've expanded over the last 27 years of being in business. We also offer coaching, owners masterminds, roundtables on, we call them power hours now, but roundtables on all of those categories we train on, we offer to our members. We also offer roundtables every month on those where contractors get on with other contractors and share ideas on a monthly basis. And then we also have one of the big things is our 3 annual conferences. We hold those in the winter, spring, and fall, where we have hundreds of contractors gather together for not only keynote speakers and to learn, but also to network with other contractors who are going through similar problems. It's not uncommon for a contractor to join CCN with low revenues and losses, but after they fully engage in our proven processes, they obtain 8-figure revenues with net profits in the 15 to 20% range. Example of this, Jerry's Roofing was a recent member who joined in the first year. The revenue went up 57.8% and the net profit increased by 144% after the first year with Certified Contractors Network. I don't want to talk too much about us, but I'll wrap this all up and let you know that the impact of teaming up with CCN is we train on the best processes and practices for delivering world-class experiences with your customers. We train you on how to elevate your brand experience in the home and how to scale your business with a higher net profit percentage. A lot of people talk about growth. A lot of people talk about scaling. We like to make sure that you're making a profit first. We focus on the profit first, and then we help you scale your business. So that's sort of us in a nutshell. If you would like to get more information on the 6 pillars that we train on, you can download this. You can download the QR code here, scan the QR code, and download this free ebook. It's about 24 pages with about 3 or 4 pages on each of the topics we train on: marketing, sales, sales management, production, operations, and finance/KPIs. But also, if you're like, hey, I want to find out what can CCN really do for me and talk to somebody about how they can make my business grow more profitably and scale our business and train my people, then you can scan this QR code right here. Dave McLean, our VP of Growth, he ran a company that was doing between 30 and $40 million, and he is now a big asset for Certified Contractors Network, and he is here to help you grow your business. So if you'd like to learn more about CCN, please reach out to Dave at that QR code. And anybody listening, we're going to send this recording to you afterwards as well. So you will be able to get the QR code if you didn't get a chance to scan it there. Now, without further ado, the main event, the reason we're here today is I want to talk with Scott Berman. I've known Scott for a few years. I talked to him back in my pro remodeler days about his forecast, what he thought the industry was going to be like, because Scott has been a big player in this home improvement industry for a long time. He is the co-founder of HeavySet Tech and president of Florida Window and Door, a $180 million plus home improvement company. On this call, Scott's going to share best practices and systems for modernizing lead capture and appointment setting. Now, after hours lead capture remains one of the biggest untapped revenue opportunities in the industry. Scott's going to address that and a host more. As I mentioned, I have 5 pages of notes with questions and things that I want to review with Scott here. So without further ado, Scott Berman, welcome to the webinar today.
Thanks, Joe. Appreciate the invitation.
You want to tell everyone a little bit about your background and what you do at Florida Window Door and with HeavySet Tech as well?
Sure. So I've been in the home improvement space since 1994. My father had a window company in Cleveland. They were vinyl window manufacturers. Open Florida Window and Door. He sold that business, Open Florida Window and Door, in 2011, I believe. We focus on primarily impact windows and doors throughout the state of Florida. We also own companies in Texas and Illinois that we purchased from the Leaf brand companies. And I also have an interest and am the founder of HeavySet Technologies, which is the reason I'm here, which is a lead capturing program that allows a customer to basically schedule a lead without ever talking to a customer service representative, but it's based on real time in your CRM. So unlike a bot where you see would you like an estimate? And the customer says 11 o'clock in the morning, and you have your call center call back the next day and say, well, we don't have 11, but we have 10. This is updating the availability based on your CRM, based on the amount of salesmen you have, the territory you're covering, and and the appointment is confirmed using AI. So it'll ask you X amount of questions, however many you want, and inevitably it will confirm the appointment in the CRM and set it up for a salesperson to run that appointment whenever that appointment is scheduled.
Yeah, and so I got to know a lot more about HeavySet at our last conference in Fort Myers this past January. And I'm really excited about bringing it to our members and our prospects on the call today. So we'll learn more about HeavySet as we go throughout, and I'll give you contact information at the end as well, Scott. But I want to really pick your brain today to give some really good information out there. Now, you mentioned your experience, you mentioned the businesses you operate. You've been in the industry for decades now in the window and door industry. What problems do contractors still underestimate when it comes to lead handling? What are the biggest problems they underestimate?
I think waste. I mean, I think in my experience, if you ask a contractor how they're going to grow their business, the answer is always, well, I'm going to add salesmen and I'm going to get more leads.
Yeah.
And I think what they don't really recognize is if you improve the process, both of lead acquisition as well as the quality of your sales force, you don't really need to spend more on marketing, because you can focus on the leads that you're missing or the sales that have either not sold or canceled. And I think it's found money, because you're not increasing your advertising expense. You're actually making your company more efficient by improving the lead process and the sales process.
Yeah. Now, at what point in your journey, I mean, you've been in business for decades now. At what point did you realize that, quote unquote, getting leads wasn't the problem, but what happens after the lead comes in? How long did that take you to figure out? And we can talk about what you're doing about it a little bit later.
I think as you grow, it becomes more prevalent. Like you start out in the beginning and you're like, okay, I'm at 10 million. I want to get to 20 million, or 5. I want to get to 10. And it's like, I can get there. I need X amount of leads and I have 4 salespeople and I'm ready to go. But I think as you get a larger sales force and management becomes harder because you have more people, you bleed more money. You become less efficient. So I think the ultimate, responsibility is it's incumbent upon you to try to create efficiencies to the best of your ability in order to make your company better. So in answer to your question, I don't think there's ever that time where we ever say to ourselves, we're good enough. Like right now, we have 30 people in a hotel room for 9 days, salesmen retraining on the sales process. That is group 2. We had 30 people 2 weeks ago for 9 days doing it. And we have 30 people behind it doing it as well. And we're shutting down a third of our sales force so that we can make them better to reduce cancellations and improve closing percentages. So it doesn't go away.
Right.
But I find so few people looking at it that it's sort of frightening. You hear people like, oh my God, leads are more expensive. Oh my God, how am I going to afford it? Blah, 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 blah. But you don't hear them say, well, what are we doing to look at our process to make it better? And I think that's where so many companies fail, and including ours to a certain extent.
Yeah. No, before we move on, that's a great point, Scott. Before we move on, I forgot to mention, if you're on this webinar live right now, You can use the chat feature or the Q&A. I believe the Q&A feature is accessible as well. If not, the chat's certainly there. I'll make sure everyone has access to that. You can use that to ask questions, and that way, at the end of this call, 45, 50 minutes in, we have a lot to cover. Scott can answer those questions in real time if you have them. Don't be shy if you have them. Ask them on there as we go. And Scott brings up something you want to address maybe a little deeper. We'll get back to that at the end of the call. So Scott, what would you say the contract, before we move on to a couple other sections I have here, the typical contractor, what do they get wrong about speed to lead? You hear speed to lead is buzzword. Speed to lead. What is speed to lead? Some people think speed to lead is, within the first 30 minutes, within the first 30 seconds, within the first 10 seconds. What do most contractors get wrong about speed to lead, especially as it relates to their nights, weekends, holidays, after hours? What do they get wrong about it?
I think we in the home improvement industry have not adjusted to the consumer response. And what I mean by that is that, as an example, when I'm going out to dinner with my wife is on the phone, shopping or looking for something. And yet if she wanted to shop for a home improvement, to schedule an appointment, she could never get that appointment because your call center is closed. So basically what we're saying is, hey, listen, do business with us from the hours of 8 a.m. to 7 p.m. because you're really not allowed to call after 8, and most people's call centers probably close at 7 if they have them. So we're basically substituting all these people who are not available during the daytime hours because they're working, and in some cases working 2 jobs or doing whatever with their family. And we're basically saying to them, hey, let's go back to 1970 and call me when it's convenient for me as the company, as opposed to you, the customer. And so I think that we're like, we're back to the future. We're 50 years back, and the world is, all about internet and all about speed to lead and whatever else, but we're not fast. And so as a result of that, we're ineffective, and we're spending money, to get these customers, which is becoming progressively more expensive by multiples of God knows how much money. And consumers are more careful, and you're not touching them. And then the last component of it is, if you think for 1 second that your customer wants to talk to your call center to set an appointment, you're out of your mind. And the reason that I say that is, imagine that the average customer shops 3 companies. And the first company they call, this is the first home improvement they're going to buy. The first company they call asks all the relevant questions. You're the homeowner. How big is your roof? How many windows do you want? How much do you want to spend? What's your credit score? Whatever those questions are. The customer answers that. There's 15 questions. They answer it. The customer calls the next company. Next company asks the same 15 questions. Don't you think the customer at this point is getting frustrated? And then they go to the third company and they're like, I've already heard this script before. And the reason they've heard the same script is because we've all been trained by the same people, and we all ask the same questions. So it's crazy when you take a step back and say, wait a second, it doesn't really make sense. And so that's the advantage of HeavySet.
Yeah. And so let's give a number in your perspective. Maybe you don't have a number exactly, but maybe a general idea. How fast should a contractor realistically be responding to inbound leads? And obviously what happens when they don't? What happens when they take too long? I mean, it's pretty obvious, but I think there's got to be a time frame that makes the most sense to contractors.
I think the answer to that question is a little bit more complicated than speed to lead. So as an example, if you're using an aggregator, you got to be really fast, because I'm going to be calling that customer within 10 to 20 seconds. Okay. If it's a television lead, an internet lead, they've done some research, they're calling you, it's a little bit more, of a time issue. You can call the customer back. They potentially are shopping, but it's not as aggressive. You may have a little bit more time. But the reality of it is that the response time is indicative of your company's reputation. So the longer it takes, the worse the customer's journey is, and the less important you seem to the customer. And that's really what is more important to me, which is the person who's calling is the first interface with that customer outside of our ads. So they have an interest, but you got to get them while they still have that interest. So a day later probably is too late. Doesn't mean you can't call them a second time or a third time a day later, but the initial call shouldn't be a day later. The other thing is, under no circumstance should a customer go to a voicemail. It just should never happen. I don't care how big you are. Nobody's more important than a customer, a lead being able to be set by a human. If they're calling, if that's the way they want to be communicated to. It's not a
Yeah.
voicemail. So it's just about process.
Now, Scott, when it comes to form fills, chat leads, things of that nature you mentioned, you mentioned everybody has the same 15 questions. We all train on the same thing. It takes 15 minutes to set an appointment when you talk to somebody in the office. It seems like form fills and chat leads are treated as almost lower quality from a salesperson's perspective. I imagine you disagree with that, right?
Look, I think at the end of the day, all leads are shit. Excuse the expression. It's up to us to turn them into gold. And
Yeah.
so, I was just on a call before this about do we show the lead source to the salesman before they go out? And the answer is no. We don't show them the lead source. It's a lead. And
Mhm.
so, one of our trainers gave the best explanation of what a lead is. And that is, the lead is your salary as a salesman. So if you look at a lead that costs you $750 and I'm giving you two, I'm paying you $1,500 a day to go convert those leads. So I don't really buy into the fact that there's any difference in leads. I mean, certainly you can't deny there's higher quality leads, there's higher intent leads,
Sure.
but those people are still calling you. So I mean, at the end of the day, they're buying from somebody. Whether that's your company or your competitors, assume they're buying, because rest assured, I assume they're buying. And I don't care
Yeah.
if I'm the first person in or the third person in, I want to be the last person in. That's the
Yeah.
key. So, I think at the end of the day, we all think leads are better, leads are worse. In order to have an effective business in our with any size, you have to have multiple lead sources. And you can't really assume that those multiple lead sources are all going to be equal, because they all run in ups and downs, and some are better than others. Direct mail sometimes is better than TV, etc. But it all works together. And so if you're, the worst thing in my mind was COVID is a perfect example. Not because it wasn't great for all of our businesses, but because it gave every salesman the false sense of security that every lead was good, number one. But number two, it gave all the management and marketing teams a false sense of security that all we had to do was advertise on aggregators all day long, and we had all of our leads for cheap. The fact is that now aggregators are no longer as effective as they were, not because they're any better than they were before. There's just less people home.
Right.
So as a result of that, you can't rely on aggregators as your main source of leads, because there aren't that many leads. And so the normalization process has occurred, and a lot of people have been caught flat-footed with, oh my God, my lead costs are exponentially higher than they were 4 or 5 years ago. Really, no kidding. We're shocked. So, I think it's just an issue of whatever lead you get, whatever lead sources you're using, you have to optimize the ability to set leads from those sources, because if you don't, we are, and your competitors are. And that's the
Yeah.
most important thing to consider.
Yeah. And you mentioned something about your previous call. I'm going to talk about, what problem you're trying to solve when you built HeavySet, but you mentioned that about not giving the lead source to the salespersons. Is there any other, what information do you give to a salesperson? What do they know other than, do they just know the address, and when do they know it? When do they
They
know that
know
information?
the name,
Mhm.
the address, and what the customer is calling for. And they
Okay.
could know that it's a one-legger or not a one-legger, or a single-family person at home, I should say. But we don't give them credit score. We don't give them anything related to anything that will deter them from their mindset. Source
Yeah.
is one thing. Every salesperson typically thinks they have the best lead source. We don't really subscribe to that theory. So we don't give it to them. We want to eliminate any mitigating factor of their ability to really give a good presentation in the house because of source or quality of income or prejudging any appointment before they get there or even while they're there.
Yeah, I asked that because I as a marketing director for 13 years in the industry in the window and door business, I struggle with that a lot with how much information to give the salespersons and when to give it to them, right? So I think that's just a good aside for the audience today. Uh, let's talk briefly here about, sort of the reason behind why you built HeavySet Forms, and we talk a little bit about HeavySet Forms. What problem were you trying to solve for contractors? What basic problem were you trying to solve for them?
So we developed HeavySet to basically have a customer experience, to allow a customer to experience setting an appointment that was at an accurate time on an accurate day with 100% commitment to coming to their house for that estimate. And basically as a concept of all the custom to eliminate any customer that we couldn't get in touch with. So that was behind the behind the curtain, so to speak. In full disclosure, we never expected to turn it into a business. It was something that we used, and I showed it to a friend, and he's like, I want this. And then we showed it to somebody else, and they're like, I want this. How do you charge? And so we developed a business around it, and now we have customers that are doing billions of dollars and customers that are doing $5 million in revenue. But the one advantage of HeavySet is it really came out of the premise that my wife was shopping on Amazon, and I'm thinking to myself, it's 8 o'clock at night. If they call my office, we would never get in touch with anybody. And so imagine a customer who works all day, has to take their kids to a practice of a sports team or whatever, ballet, whatever they're doing. They don't get home till 8 o'clock. And they do this every single day for 5 days. They called you on Monday. You're not getting in touch with that customer. During the day, they're at work. In the evening, they're dealing with their kids. They probably aren't answering their phone because most of us don't have spam remediation and caller ID hooked up to our phone. So you're not able to get in touch with them. And quite frankly, the customer doesn't want to talk to you at the end of the day. So the objective was to take that and see what we could do to create a competitive advantage. So now fast forward to 2 or 3 years after we've run this for a period of time, and what we find is that we set a disproportionate amount of leads between 8 o'clock at night and 8 o'clock in the morning. We're able to fill our schedule when we're short because we're seeing leads that we normally would never talk to. I mean, I think yesterday we set 105 leads using HeavySet in addition to our call center. And people like the frictionless process of dealing with HeavySet. The other thing that I would point out to your audience is that I'm not advocating getting rid of your call center. I just want to be clear. That was the initial objective, by the way, but it doesn't work out that way because there are customers who still want to talk to somebody. But it's in addition to, it's not in lieu of. So you can reduce the hours in your call center, and we've done that. So instead of closing at 8, we close at 6. But we're able to capture a lot of people who would normally talk to our call center who are dealing with HeavySet. Now, the numbers are very clear. We have a 22% higher set rate, a 15% lower cancellation rate, and a 15% higher average order for the leads that are the leads that are taken by HeavySet and run. So HeavySet pays for itself. Additionally, what goes unmentioned is the fact that we reduce our marketing costs, because for those companies who are a little bit more sophisticated, chances are if they're running Google and their call center is closed, they stop Google. So if your call center closed at 6, the smart people are closing their advertising campaigns at 6 o'clock because they don't have anybody to respond to that speed to lead really quickly.
Yeah.
But the reality of it is because we have HeavySet, we can run ads all night long. And those ads are significantly cheaper and against far less competition than what they are during the day because they don't have the capacity to set the leads at night and in the early morning. And you would be shocked at how many people are shopping during those hours. It's absurd. And
Yeah,
this
absolutely.
entire industry doesn't cater to those people.
No, you raised a good point. I'm working all day. I have three kids, three step kids. I have six kids. We've got four
Right.
practices on any given night. I'm not doing any kind of research on my home improvement projects, the deck I need to get next year, until I'm laying in bed at 9 p.m. after it's all
Yep.
settled, right? And that's a great point. I'm not uncommon. I'm today I think I'm pretty common compared. I mean, not everybody has six kids.
With six kids, you can't be common.
Right, but I can't be, but like everybody else, you're busy. You don't have time to sit there and schedule appointments at during normal business hours.
And that doesn't
Uh,
include, by the way, Sundays, which most
right.
call centers are closed.
Yeah.
Saturday afternoons, most call centers are closed. So it gives you the visibility you need to do that. And inevitably, what you're going to find is a lot of customers want that experience. And so it's strictly designed for that experience. Now, on the other side, if you're short of leads, what it will do is it will go into your database for whatever the date range you want, and it will reach out to customers by text message saying, hey, we're running a special sale. We see that you called. We're sorry we didn't get in contact with you. Would you like to schedule an estimate? So you have the backup of being able to address all the leads all the inquiries that never set. You can go through your system again to overcome the shortcomings in your schedule. So it's
Great.
really built for the home improvement and service space. That's what it was designed for.
Yeah. Now, what would you say to the contractor, Scott, who is concerned about sort of automation feeling impersonal? How do you balance automation with trust and still giving a good customer experience?
Listen, that's a fantastic question. I think that's why I said before, a call, it's not in lieu of your call center, it's in addition to. So for every
Mhm.
customer that doesn't like automation, that feels it's impersonal, they're not gonna subscribe to HeavySet. And we're using, as an example, at Florida Window and Door, we're using AI to set appointments and, on certain lead sources and trying it out. And there's really been no indication that AI is better or worse than a human setting calls. The results aren't better. The cost is better, but the results aren't better. The end result isn't better, but it's about the same. But
Okay.
if you look at it, like if we look at it, we spend, $3 to $4 million a year in our call center to staff it and the buildings and whatever. But there's going to come a point where that $3 million will be saved and it will go totally to AI. We're not there yet because AI isn't that inexpensive. HeavySet is the middle ground at this point. Now there'll be an AI component in terms of voice, but you would be shocked at how many people, and even if you use your own lifestyle as part of it, how many people would rather text than talk, especially to
Oh,
a customer service person. So
yeah.
HeavySet is allowing you to text your confirmation at your convenience so that you don't have to respond to that person. And you as a company don't have to burn that lead because the customer didn't confirm the appointment. I am shocked to this day how many people feel more comfortable confirming an appointment by text than talking to our confirmation department. It's mind-boggling.
Yeah.
So there are a group of people, and especially the younger people who aren't 70 and 80 who are doing home improvement projects, the younger people like you, not me, but you, who are more comfortable talking in text than they are on the phone. And this is the future of home improvement.
Yeah.
So you have to have both until there's a better way to communicate to customers. You need both.
Yeah, I operate under this. If it can be texted, don't call me. Like,
Right.
it because I can if it's a phone call, I might miss it. I might forget to call you back. But if it's a text, I can just get back to it when I'm done with the meeting I'm in or whatever it might
100%.
be. Right? Yeah.
And
So I'm
and
part of
again,
that
that's
group.
the advantage of HeavySet. It does it
Yeah.
all for you. Now, is an 80-year-old woman or a person, I should say, gonna want to text you? Probably not, which
Right.
is why you need the call center.
Yeah. That's good. I love your approach to it's just not replacing everything. You still need other elements in place. Let's talk a little bit about conversion. Before we do, I want to remind everyone you can use the chat function. We've already been in this a half hour. We have about a half hour left with Scott. I'm capable of filling it with questions for Scott. But if there are any questions, let us know and I'll relay them to Scott and we'll get you answered here. But let's turn to conversion and ROI, Scott. From a contractor's perspective, what metrics should matter more than just number of leads? What kind of metrics should they really be focused on?
Conversion. I think everybody gets, and this is, I'm not going to go against aggregators and everything, but I think aggregators are a perfect example. If you look at an aggregator, they're selling you a lead based on cost. So you're like, I can give you a name for $18. Well, I would argue that you would say to that, well, oh my God, that's amazing. Let me buy all the aggregator leads I can buy. But when you look at the conversion rate and you look at the cost of labor to convert those leads, and then ultimately the sale, that lead that inquiry may not be as expensive as a direct mail piece, but you're looking at it like I'm getting more data. But if you can't call that data because you don't have the capacity or whatever, the reality of it is that it's not as good of a lead. So I think it fills a niche, but it shouldn't be the primary source of all your leads. So to me, we look at lead sources not only by the amount we get, but the cost of the lead issued, and then ultimately the revenue that it's bringing back to the company, because that's really how we determine our advertising budget.
Yeah, that's a great point. Conversion is critical. Now, how would you say like better appointment setting, using HeavySet or any form of appointment setting, how does better appointment setting impact your close rates, your cancellation rates, and honestly, your overall revenue? How can that have an impact on those three things?
Well, if you look at it, let's take an aggregator because that's the easiest one right off the
Yeah.
bat, which probably most people use. If you take an aggregator lead comes to your system, and somebody fills out a generic form, it goes into your CRM, and you call the customer, okay? And you try to get in touch with them, They have no idea, they've never heard of your company. That's stage one, okay? Using HeavySet as an example, the aggregator lead goes into your CRM. Your CRM shoots a message to the customer. Thank you for calling Florida Window and Door. If you would like to schedule an estimate, you can either do it online or you can make a phone call or we'll call you, whatever, in the next 2 hours. And under that is a link to HeavySet, which they can schedule the lead right away. So if I take my competitor who's getting the same lead and he's making the phone call, or I'm the one calling by HeavySet and you really believe speed to lead is the appropriate thing, well, what's faster than a customer being able to schedule a lead within seconds after filling out the form, a generic form that bounces to your CRM and bounces to the customer's cell phone, telling them to schedule the appointment themselves and save $100 a window. So it's again, customer experience.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean by the way, it doesn't mean that aggregator results are any better or worse, because I'm not advocating or I'm not negative or positive towards aggregators, but I'm using that as an example.
Yeah, that's a good example. Aggregators are easy to identify with for the contractors listening right now. So if a contractor's out there, they're spending a lot on marketing, not seeing the results, not seeing the growth they want or they plan for at the beginning of the year. Where do you think they should look first? Is it in that number of leads they've already gotten and trying to convert more of those and make more out of those, or is it spending more money to on marketing and trying to grow that way? Where do you think they should start?
Drew, I know this is going to sound so stupid, but if you're having a problem, the first thing I would do before you even look at the lead source is call your office and see how long it takes for the sales department to respond to the lead.
That's a great point.
That's the first thing I would do. You
Yeah.
would be shocked at how often it goes to voicemail or they don't answer. So
Wow.
that's the first thing.
Yeah.
So after you do that, and assuming that that's fine, I would start looking at the lead sources, and I would do it. Before I spent any money, I would try to figure out which lead sources are providing you the most issued leads and the most revenue, and then I would slowly steer money away from the ones that are non-performing. And you should, depending on your budget, you should continually evaluate this, every 30 to 45 days. I mean, that's really what it comes down to, because you have to be in a position where this is a work in process. It's never set it and forget it. It's evaluate, evaluate, evaluate. And if you do that, you'll start to realize the successful lead sources from the unsuccessful lead sources.
Yeah, it's funny you mentioned that. When I was at Energy Swing, one of the things we did a lot of direct mail, and I would look at direct mail as a whole. We did a lot of every door direct mail, uh, and I would look at it as a whole and say, oh, we're down this year. Our return's only 5-1 on our direct mail right now, our every door direct mail pieces. But I got this from CCN when they looked at our numbers. Once I dug deeper into that, I saw that 80% of our leads and our sales were coming from 20 or 30% of the routes we were sending to versus the other 60 or 70% of the routes,
100%.
right? They weren't getting it. So what we did, it was easy to trim the fat there, right? It was easy to trim that and take those dollars and put them somewhere else and work on other lead sources that were helpful to us. So
Yeah, I
always,
mean, I
always
think
have to
that
look deep. Yeah.
I think that brings up an interesting point, which is if you go to your CRM and you analyze where you're doing the most of your business is probably concentrated in certain zip codes.
Yeah.
But you want to advertise among the widest place, but that doesn't necessarily mean that that's where you should be advertising. And, one of the things that some of us have is an ego in reference to seeing ourselves everywhere. But the reality of it is you may not be your customer. So
Right.
like if you're judging your marketing based on the offer that would appeal to you as opposed to your audience, you're making a mistake. If you're marketing in high-end magazines because you look at high-end magazines, but your customer is not a higher end person, that's a mistake. You have to take a step back from personalize it on your lifestyle and understand it from the perspective of your customer.
That's a great point, Scott. I do have a question that came in. They wanted to, Scott, how do you steer people to use HeavySet versus calling after hours?
We give them an option. It's just
Okay.
we can call you, or you can call this number, or you can push the link to use HeavySet. Everything is an
Uh,
option. It's not a this is what we're forcing you to do. It's here's plan A is we can have somebody call you. Plan B is you can click the link and set a lead yourself and save $100. And the $100 is justifiable because you're saving labor costs, if anybody should ever ask you.
yeah. It's great. Great point. Great. Thank you for the question. If there's any other questions, again, we have the Q&A feature. I think that was used there, or we have the chat as well. Scott, if you don't mind, let's move on to like operations and staffing. I mean, always a big thing. I was just in a mastermind today where everyone's making a bunch of hires after a few months of struggling to find people. They made some good key hires to start the year. The labor shortages, though, are still a big issue. How does better automation help contractors, do more without hiring more people? Like, I think you talk about the call center stuff. You don't necessarily need to extend your team to do more. Is that correct?
Listen, I think automation offers great efficiency, but I
Mhm.
would caution all of us to understand that if you can't do it on paper, the likelihood of you automating it is very narrow. So I think your process has to be set before you implement automation. And I know, and so many companies that are out there with AI voice and Rilla and Improve It and Engage and Heavy Set, 1,000 other things. And I think that so few companies are really using it properly because they love the concept of saying I have it, but they don't know how to maximize the efficiencies of it. So I
Yeah.
think you have to be prepared that with this investment, and it's an investment in a tech stack, with the investment, you have to figure out a way to manage to it. So like we use Rilla as an example. We're one of the first adapters to it. And the fact is that we used it for 2 years and nobody ever really used it. Like
Yeah.
we didn't know how to use the management of it. And
Yeah.
now we have a separate compliance department that listens to every call and we promote the calls and we do all that. But we never knew how to use it. But when somebody said, well, do you have Rilla? We're like, oh yeah, we have Rilla. It's amazing. we weren't doing anything with it. So and I would caution the companies that are smaller to really embracing technology. I would caution them to look at the cost and the benefit, because that, you get to a point where it is inefficient. And
Yeah.
that's where I think so many of us struggle.
Yeah. Now, if you looking specifically at lead handling, with automation, when lead handling is automated correctly, what roles inside of a contracting business benefit the most? Which particular positions inside your company?
I think it benefits your marketing department if you have one. It
Hmm.
benefits sales because you have more leads. It benefits your call center because it makes them more efficient and gets them, they touch leads that we touch leads technology wise that you would never touch. And at the end of the day, it benefits your bottom line because you're setting more leads with the same amount of money spent. And I think people who value the lead and spend money on marketing, and if you know what your lead cost is, you should be using HeavySet. If you don't know what your lead cost is, you shouldn't be using HeavySet because you're just not there yet. When you figure
Yeah,
it out, you'll want to use HeavySet as well.
that's a good point. You need to know your numbers. You need to know what you're targeting before you can actually use this technology. Now, I opened up the call mentioning that, I interviewed you for Pro Remodeler when I worked at Pro Remodeler for an article on forecasting what years would look like. So I want to get a little personal. I want to do some forecasting here with you, sort of to get towards the wrap up of this call. And this is a personal question, and I know you're open and honest and an open book. What's the biggest mistake you made early in your own business that other contractors listening today can learn from? What's the biggest mistake you made, Scott?
I thought that volume solved all of your problems.
Yeah.
That was my biggest. I never I never understood that I always thought we could outsell our costs. And I think that, or mistakes. And candidly, it bankrupted. I mean, and my story is very out there, so
Yeah,
everybody can
please share.
Google me
Please
or
share.
whatever.
Yeah. Yeah.
I
Yeah.
mean, basically, I started a company in Florida, and our first year we did great sale. We were amazing at selling. I think we did $10 million or 9 million, I don't remember, and we were losing $1 million a month because I
Wow.
didn't know how to install, and I wasn't selling at the right price, but I was getting customer deposits, and I was, I thought I was doing well. Um, but I always thought that volume cured a lot of problems. And in reality, my argument now would be if you can't do 5 million profitably, what makes you think you could do $7 or $10 million profit?
That's a great
So,
point.
I think that was my biggest mistake. And my second biggest mistake, and we talked about this before the interview started, was I didn't attend enough trade groups. I don't, I don't remember the first one I went to. But I do know that everyone I've attended, some have been better than others. But I do know that I get something out of every single one, and I get something out of every single person I meet there. And I've been able to monetize ideas and scale ideas that other people gave me that they couldn't scale. And I'm not afraid to admit it. Like you've been around this business forever too. It's like none of us have fresh ideas. We just borrow someone else's ideas and put it in our office and then say it's ours.
That's
It's
right.
not stolen. It's not stolen. It's borrowed. But there's no reason to recreate anything. Like there's selling tools out there. There's closing tools. There's PowerPoints or Engage or whatever. There's no reason to recreate everything. What
Yeah.
I think the shows do and for everybody is that they give everybody, we've used every vendor that has been at a show historically. We've used all the
Hmm.
finance companies. We use the presentation people. Now, it doesn't mean that we don't refine the idea and eventually bring it in-house, but we use them in the beginning to vet the idea. And then we better the idea based on what they tell us. So those are the two mistakes. And, I think what you'll find, and I'll add one other one, just as a side note. I don't know how much time we have. Just
Oh, we're good. 15
time,
minutes.
so
Yeah,
I'm
we're good.
sorry.
Yeah.
The
No,
other
you're
thing
good.
is that I remember when I was less well known, not to be egotistical. And I was scared to go up to some of the people who were more successful in our industry.
Mhm.
And when I got a little bit more comfortable and had maybe a little bit more success and a little bit more comfort in my own skin, I started to go up to some of these guys. And today they're some of my closest friends. But my point in telling the story is that all of us, and I'll say me included, are happy to help anybody who
Yeah.
has questions or is struggling. And the reason that we're happy to do it is not because we want to feed our egos. It's because, at least from my view, we're paying something forward. And what I mean by that is we've all been where you are. We've
Yeah.
had money problems. We've gone bankrupt. We couldn't pay our vendors. We had to make payment plans. We couldn't pay our sales guys. We had the wrong leadership. I mean, I could go on and on, but we've all been there. And I think, so many people that I speak to, and when I speak at an event, they're like, oh my God, I want to be you. And it was like, they feel like I had like a golden key and I figured it out and it all happened at once. It was a grind. It was
Yeah.
mistake after mistake. It was, hitting singles and taking a step forward and taking 6 steps back. It wasn't like we started at a zero and ended up where we are today. It was a lot of struggle. And
Yeah.
so, I just think that there's no easy steps to this. And if you make the commitment every day to get better and lay it out on how you're going to do it with a really concrete plan, and I don't have a business plan, but like just ideas, you'll get there. But it's a lot of sweat equity that I think a lot of people just don't really appreciate for the companies that really have made it to the top. And I'm not saying I'm one of them, but the top of the top, so to speak, it takes a lot to get here. And it's just so many people think it's just so easy, but we all had the same struggles. And to this day, we have those struggles. It's just on
Yeah.
a larger scale.
Yeah, we talked before. I mentioned that, the average member of Certified Contractor Networks doing, just about 9.5, $10 million annually. And, when they were doing one or two or three or four, they went through all the struggles and now they're at 10, or the 20s are still members after 20 years of being in CCN, because they're now, as you mentioned, they want to help the others who've gone through the same things they went through. And you can learn from anybody. You can learn from you can, like you said, you can learn ideas from the smaller guys, but you might be in a better place to make the idea work, right?
Yeah, and I would say to you, like, two things on that. When I was at 10 million, I thought having, if I had $1 million in the bank, I was like, oh my God, this is amazing. And then you get bigger and the goalposts move. And you get
Yeah.
bigger and the goalposts move. And that's healthy. But I also think you shouldn't be satisfied with everything changes. Things are changing around you. So we're training, as I said before, a bunch of sales guys because not that we weren't good. We want to get better. Our competition has gotten better. We got to get better. So I think that at the end of the day, you continually your company has to evolve. And I would say, from my perspective, when we were 10 million, I had way more fun. I mean, way more fun. Now it's I got HR and I got attorneys and account. I mean, it's like it's awful. I'm
Whole
having
different
fun, but
business.
it's different. And
Yeah.
so, I think you also, as an owner or an operator, you have to realize what you really want to do. Because there's a lot of people who've worked for me historically who were happier at a $10 million company where they knew everybody in the company and every day was sort of just status quo. I don't like that, but there are people who are like, I don't want to grow. I don't want to be, it's not my DNA, but it is others. And I think
Yeah.
you have to be respectful of that.
Yeah. Well, Scott, we have about 10 minutes left. One last call for any questions that pop up here. But I do have a few more for you to wrap it up here. Then I'll try to share a QR code for the audience to reach out to Mary Beth at HeavySet. Kind of look forward here. How do you see lead generation and appointment setting changing for contractors over the next few years?
Look, I think that leads are going to get progressively more expensive.
Mhm.
And I mean, if you think they're expensive now, I think it's going to get worse. I don't think it's ever going to get better. So I think what that means is you have to have different types of not only lead sources, you have to have different ways for people to get in touch with you to set leads. And I think you got to go back to show and events which HeavySet can set leads sitting at the event. It's also, TCPA compliant, which is critically important. If those of you who are unaware of it, Google it, because, this do not call list and all this other stuff, there's a lot of litigation going on in our industry that is, going to have a negative impact in everybody's business down the road. So I think it's something you have to look at, but I think you have to look at aggregators and home shows and TV and direct mail, and you have to come up with a plan that fits your budget. But leads are going to get more expensive. And I think if you're reading the newspapers and the news or watching the news, I think consumers are stretched, which means that financing is going to become more important, which means that your marketing message may have to change, which means that you're going to have, less customers who are going to be able to afford your products. So I think all of these dynamics are coming. And I think the last component of this, Drew, is that the larger companies are getting more sophisticated. So we're doing things that the average company could never do. They can't afford, they don't have the sophistication, whatever the case may be. And so the gap between small and large is getting wider and wider.
Yeah.
When I first came in the business and you came in the business, you could enter this business inexpensively, throw some advertising in, and you get response. Those days are gone. They're gone. And so I think that, you got to have a good plan, and you got to have good people. And I think if you can get your marketing costs under control, and that's, everybody has a different definition of marketing costs and percentages, but I think if you can get those under control, and to a point where you're comfortable, I think that you'll be successful. If you don't, you're going to be in trouble. And I would, using just one thing, using like 10% marketing costs. If you expect your marketing costs to be at 10%, you're in the wrong business. You're in the wrong, like in the old days, when I first got in the business, we were at 10%. And 10% was like, you were at 10, that was standard industry parlance to, you're at 10%. Those days are over. Like there's no way anybody who's telling you the truth is a 10% who has a business any size. Not happening. Yeah. And I think your retail price has to reflect that.
Yeah, I know folks who are industry legends as well, that were doing maybe 40, 50 million a year, and then approached 100 million, and they would talk about, everybody says 10% is that magic number, but as they grew, it was 15, it was 20, it was 22%. Yeah. They would just grew to maintain that level of growth, right?
And that goes back to when you say, what was your biggest mistake? The fact is that what most owners that I speak to who are smaller are so scared to raise their price because they feel like they're going to lose business. But the reality really is that you're going to close 1 out of every 3 people you see. If you have a good sales presentation, you create value, and your price point really doesn't matter. So it's your mindset. It's not the consumer, it's your mindset, because the reverse argument of that is if your price is raised and your marketing budget is 15 or 20% instead of 10, you're going to see more people. So therefore, it's a numbers game.
100%. Now, Scott, before we wrap it up, I want to ask you one last question. You talk about people adapting and adopting. I think overall, the industry has gone in a way that owners are adapting and adopting new technologies faster than they used to. I mean, 10 years ago, it was like, oh, we'd wait 3 years and research something. You can't wait 3 years to try something new now. You can't. You'll be behind almost everybody in your market, right? It's so quick. There's so much going on. So what's your advice? And while you answer this question, I'm going to stop sharing my screen and reshare to get your QR code up. What's your advice for contractors who are sort of overwhelmed by all the new technologies going in there, but they know they need to adapt and adopt?
I mean, look, I think the easiest thing to do is go to your local college and hire somebody from the marketing department as an intern who understands technology. I think you have to understand technology in this day and age. Doesn't mean you have to use it, individually, but I think you have to understand technology, and you have to understand what it gets from, for you. And once you understand that, I think whether you love it, hate it, or don't use it, I think you have enough knowledge that you can make business decisions on what to use and when to use it. But I think if you don't use it, you're going to be left behind. And ultimately, I don't think you'll be in business.
Uh, Great point, Scott. Scott, on that note, I wanted, if you see my screen here, you have Mary Beth on the screen here. See her, Scott?
I see her.
All right, perfect. Yes, Mary Beth with HeavySet. She was at our conference in January at Innovate at CCN's conference, and she's absolutely amazing to work with. Have her QR code on the screen there. You can book a demo with Mary Beth to learn more about much of what Scott talked about today in HeavySet. And again, if you've lasted on the call this long, we are going to send this recording out, so you'll have that QR code there as well. But go ahead and I'll give you a few seconds to scan that and book a demo with Mary Beth. But again, we'll get this recording out to you. Scott, I want to thank you for joining Certified Contractors Network today for this webinar, not only for the webinar, but also for being a partner of ours at our Innovate conference. I look forward to seeing you guys at future conferences and future partnerships. I think what you guys are doing is great. And, somebody with your industry insight and longevity in the business and things you've experienced, I think go a long way towards the contractors who are listening today. So thank you for joining me today, Scott.
You're one of the favorite people I interview with, so it's fun, as always.
I love to hear. Hey, thank you, Scott. We'll do it again.
I hope so.
All right. Thank you. Thank you to everyone who joined today. I will send this out to you within the next 24 to 48 hours. I'll send the recording over to you, and have a wonderful week. Thank you.
Bye.
Thanks, Scott.
You got it. Good.